I can't blame the most fundamental of Lewis Hamilton fundamentalists for when Lewis Hamilton puts on those red overalls and jumps into that red car chaise for doing one of these. Good riddance, Mercedes, Toto Wolff, et al. It was never you. It was never me. The relationship that I had with you was vicariously through Lewis Hamilton. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shakedown podcast. With me as always, my brethren, my colleagues, my co-hosts, the one they call Shazinho, aka the A-side, and the one they call Sir Baxty. How are we doing, chaps?
It doesn't matter, Cameron. It does not matter.
Let us go.
It doesn't matter.
That is the zest with which we need to attack this thing they call F1, because there are very many F1-centric threads at which we need to pull. Shez, let me ask you about Toto Wolff's comments, because he's been talking a lot about Lewis Hamilton, hasn't he? Much to the disenchantment and rancor of the Lewis Hamilton community globally. In particular, there was a comment around cognitive sharpness, that everybody's cognitive life, he said words to this effect, that everybody's cognitive lifespan comes to an end in the endeavour that is the one that F's. Under the umbrella heading of the career that is Sir Lewis Hamilton. To that, Shazinho, you respond how, sir?
I'm still annoyed about it. Like, I've been trying to get over it, but I still find it really irritating that he said that.
How and why?
Well, look, I get it, right? Toto said that in his book at the moment that he pretty much just found out that Lewis was heading off to Ferrari, that he'd given him zero notice that it was happening. So I get that he was a bit annoyed about it. I get that he also had to think about who's going to come next. He also has to think about the fact that, well, actually, yeah, we this is what we kind of planned. Where we didn't want him in the car because at some point we're going to have to replace him, and maybe he's done us a favor by telling us. Whatever, all of that. But the fact that the author says Toto was looking for the right word, and those are the words he chose. That everyone has a shelf life prefaced by their cognitive sharpness. That to me made it sound like he was basically trying to say he's going senile, and maybe that's not what he meant, and maybe there's a language issue there. But whatever you want to say about somebody's ability, like calling them slow in here, I think was maybe a poor choice of words. Although I don't disagree with the message overall, which is that, yeah, Lewis is almost 40 years old and he's closer to the end of his career than he is to the beginning. And Mercedes, as a team that want to win championships and please their shareholders, are going to have to move on from him at some point. I don't mind that. It's just the choice of words.
Baxi, let me tell you what stood out to me. It felt like a bit of a false flag strategic play, as Toto Wolff outlined it, that he knew that there was a substantial material risk of Lewis Hamilton going to pastures anew by dint of the fact that they gave him a 1+1 contract, almost like that was some sort of negotiating setup for Lewis Hamilton, that Toto Wolff has played that carte blanche. Like, what do you make of that, Baxty, that Toto Wolff will deliberately give Lewis a 1+1 with a view to make sure that he doesn't lose one Andrea Kimi Antonelli going forward?
Yeah, I understand why Toto did what he did. This situation kind of reminds me a lot of what happened with, if you excuse me to cross into another sport, the New England Patriots and Tom Brady. Brady was, I think, the same age Lewis is now, or certainly when the contract negotiation took place, and he wanted a multi-year deal to stay at New England, but they weren't prepared to invest that heavily into an aging star who they felt possibly could fall off the cliff at any moment performance-wise. And if you relate this back into Mercedes, Mercedes are thinking, look, we've got Kimi on the way. Lewis is coming towards the end of his career. I know we're not delivering him the 8th championship that he wants, but we have to look forward. This is not the Lewis Hamilton racing team. It is Mercedes AMG Petronas. We are going to be here way longer than he is, way longer than probably Toto will ever be at the team. The team will continue to exist in some form. And as a team that is built around winning and not around sentimentality, they have to get brutal. And we've seen it with Michael Schumacher at Ferrari as well. They basically said to him, "We need to move on," despite all the success that he brought them. So I think they were happy to keep Lewis as long as Lewis wanted to stay, but they were preparing him for the exit. Now, if we look at the way in which that contract was presented, it was a 1+1. So Lewis actually took the decision earlier than expected. I fully expect that if he'd got in that W15 this year without having already signed a contract with Ferrari, he would have been knocking on their door going, I can't stay there. I'm not winning an eighth championship here. That +1 was never, ever getting activated because the performance of Mercedes this year hasn't again been up to scratch. So, um, Mercedes essentially got what they wanted. We heard what James Allison said on Beyond the Grid when he said, "I'm not surprised at the level of that he left because of the contract we gave him." It makes sense. I mean, I agree with Shez that Toto's phrasing was clumsy, but I fully understood the point he was trying to make.
Oh, Baxty. Am I going to have to defend Sir Lewis here? I think Toto is bang out of line, chaps. I think he's been bang out of line for the longest time. What he wants to do at this stage, chaps, 39, soon to be 40-year-old Sir Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton, he needs to put some respect on that chap's name. Now, I understand all of the going concern and building Mercedes, like getting them back to the mountaintop and building for the future. But there is a way of handling this. I'm not talking about the what's necessarily that he's chosen to, he's plumped for an Antonelli over a Lewis. I'm talking about the hows, chaps. Yeah, in the final race, you're going to build this car in homage of Lewis Hamilton. But is that all that you can do? Is that commensurate with all of Lewis's endeavours and excellence, and him having built the house that is the boys and girls from Brackley and Brixworth? I would argue not, chaps. It would be, indeed, on the contrary, it'd be disingenuous for me to argue for. I think they've been massively disrespectful. Forget all the tinfoil hattery and the sabotage gate, and the car hasn't been fantastic, and they didn't fulfil the promise of the 8th as Toto promised he would. Forget all of that stuff. I don't think they've done a good enough job of celebrating the man, the myth, the legend, and the god tier peddler that is Sir Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton in his final tour over at Mercedes. Shez, am I barking at the wrong tree?
Are you being serious?
What do you mean?
You didn't watch Silverstone then? You didn't watch the absolute massive outpouring of love and respect that he got from his team when that happened?
Yeah. Oh, so you're just going to celebrate a victory with him, and then that's.
I mean, to be fair, he'd not won a race in 2 seasons, and that has to be the emotional high point of this season for anything that's happened.
Oh, so then just full stop, new paragraph after that, nothing else.
But on top of that, that's just the icing on the cake, right? On top of that, despite what I've just said about Toto, he spent probably about 60% of the words that he used about Lewis Hamilton in that interview were him saying he's the greatest driver of all time, telling Lewis when he was at his lowest point, you are the greatest driver of all time. You need to believe that because we believe it. You can take all the sound bites you want and pick and choose all the little icky bits that you want from the interview and from his book. But the pervading feeling of that team is that they absolutely love that guy. They absolutely adore him. Did you listen to the way Bono reacted over the radio? But he brought tears to my eyes. Like more than what Lewis was saying, it was Bono's reaction that made me feel tearful. That's how much they love that guy. So I don't have any doubt about their feeling for Lewis and that they will do everything that they can. But there is a point in every relationship when, especially in a Formula One relationship, where the lines of communication are not what they were before. They cannot be because he is going to another team. So all of the trouble that he is having in the car right now is at least partly linked to the fact that he's not in the meetings. They're not listening to his feedback anymore because they've got someone else. And that's going to be grating on them. But it doesn't change the fact that when push comes to shove, when they come to Abu Dhabi, it's not going to be a see you later, mate. It's been nice knowing you. It's going to be something big. You know it is.
Bro, this feels like I'm not even going to say what I was about to say. It feels nominal. That's what it feels like. It feels nominal to me.
Ooh.
Jez, it does feel very nominal. Like it feels like it's.
What would you have them say, Cameron?
I don't have the answers. I'm not chief of comms or chief of marketing. I don't have the exam answers to your.
But this shouldn't need to be about. This shouldn't need to be about a scripted answer. This should be from the heart, right? So, what is it they need to show you?
More than Shez.
Like
more than what they have. I don't have, like I'm telling you, I don't need to have the answers to justify somehow that they need to do more. They need to do more, Shez. They should have done more. This is Sir Lewis Hamilton for context, 7-time champion, Mount Rushmore of F1 each and every single time. Man who built the house that Toto Wolff sits atop now. That's who we're talking about here. And you're just going to put a sexy... They put a livery together these days for anything, Shez. Like, you're going to put one livery together towards...
I'm not...
Oh,
but
right,
you know
then.
that's not what I'm talking about.
Oh, right. No. So, okay. So you're saying enough, Shez, is celebrating a victory. Celebrating a big, big victory because they all won. Celebrating that victory and a livery at the end of the season is enough.
But George won in Austria, right? That was the first win of the season. Did they celebrate that in the same way that they celebrated Silverstone?
I'm just asking you a question, Shez. Are you telling me on record...
Yeah,
with the avoidance of doubt, that celebrating Silverstone and the cheeky livery at Abu Dhabi is commensurate? It is sufficient paying homage.
No,
okay,
but I don't think that's all they're. Yeah, but I don't think that's all they're doing.
Say again.
I don't think that's all they're doing.
What else are they doing, Chaz?
I've just highlighted the stuff that they're doing.
I can say some others as well. So, for example, they had the re-release of his caps, and celebrating his time with the team through his different caps. He's not doing the test in Abu Dhabi with Ferrari because he and the team took the decision collectively that actually he wanted to go and do farewell tours at Petronas, at the various factories. He personally wanted to go and say goodbye and thank people for their time, and there will be proper celebrations there. I'm sure that they will probably, maybe in a few years, not now, but they will definitely have some kind of statue or something of Lewis on the factory grounds because of what he did. But also, what we have to remember is that this is still a working season. This is a racing season. They can't get all caught up in the sentimentality, particularly in those summer months when they were very competitive. It's only really since the summer break where they've really lost ground to Ferrari, McLaren, and Red Bull. And now they're kind of in this sort of no man's land of fourth place where they're miles behind the front three, but they're also miles ahead of Aston Martin. So now they can start to do these celebratory things. They can do these things with Lewis. I mean, for example, Mercedes could have blocked Lewis driving that McLaren if they really wanted to be dicks about it, but they weren't. They were like, yeah, go and drive the McLaren. Like, that's a wonderful moment. And
by the same token, Cameron, how easy is it to have like all the love and joy and stuff when Lewis is struggling to get out of quali one? Like, how can you be that happy about your driver when that is happening? Like, it would seem disingenuous, wouldn't it?
I'm not asking for them to be happy about the travails, the multitudinous foibles that they find themselves in by dint of their inability to develop a car in this ground defect era. I'm not asking them to do that. That's got nothing to do with Lewis, though, by the way, Shez. Let's not conflate issues. What I'm asking them to do is celebrate Lewis Hamilton in his final tour, not because of these past couple of seasons. Again, zero pod and all that nonsense. That's why they're here, not because of Lewis Hamilton. But I want them to celebrate the glory years, the 28. Like, I want them to do something. Do something. Do more even than they are.
He's just done a run in his 2014 title-winning car. They released a video the other day of him in that car. So I suspect they're going to do a load of content with him driving his old cars and celebrating his title-winning cars.
Maybe I'm not seeing it. Maybe it's my YouTube feed not recommended to, but I'm not seeing enough. I'll be honest with you, chaps. Not even by half.
But I mean, his exit from McLaren wasn't exactly. I mean, I know it's very different. He'd only had one championship, but he was still part of the McLaren family from when he was a kid, and it wasn't exactly a big celebratory film. I know he crashed out of his final race, but it wasn't the big emotional send-off that.
I think Baxter, it's not apples and apples that we're comparing here. Lewis leaving McLaren is a very different Lewis leaving Mercedes. 100% different, right? 6 championships different. I think the celebration needs to be more I think it should be bigger. I think they're doing him a disservice, chaps. I haven't seen hardly all of the stuff that you're talking about. I watch F1 as near as makes no difference for a living now, chaps. Consume all of the content that I can get my hands on, and I haven't seen much at all. Definitely not anything so good. You might say the couple of bits, the hats that you're talking about, Baxter, and a couple of bits and bobs, celebrating a victory with him at Silverstone. Yeah, right. You guys are telling me that's commensurate, that's enough, that's in line with the 7 championships and bloody
But are you saying that what they are doing or not doing suggests that they don't care about Lewis Hamilton? Is that what you're trying to say?
No. You're taking it a step further. You're extending.
But that's why I'm asking the question.
Do they not care about Lewis? I don't know. I'm not close enough to the circumstances to say definitively. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Maybe not. Like, I mean, if you look at Toto's comments in those book, in that book, even when Lewis is
the ones that have been picked and chosen out for us to consume on social media.
Book, Shez.
Yeah, sure, but those are the ones that have been picked out by Autosport and the race and everyone else.
But Shez, very quickly on this, it's not like none of us on this pod want to be unreliable narrators. So each of us will have seen those and then bought the book and then gone and deep dive to understand the broader so those, it's not like those, do you know what I mean? You might argue that they're taken out of context, but they are still there.
They are not taken out of context. I 100% agree. They are talking about what they're talking about.
So to your point then, to your question then, Shez, which I'm presuming at this stage is non-rhetorical, about caring for Lewis while he's still in a Mercedes car, driving that car on the back of the 6 championships and all the work and carrying that team kicking and screaming to the mountaintop. On the back of all that, I find it, I wouldn't be arguing in good faith to say that Toto Wolff cares about Lewis. Yeah, he says that they're still friends and whatever, but that feels like lip service. Why? Yeah. Well, because they're not, for me, they're not celebrating that dude in his final tour. They might be doing 1 and 2 little tick box things, cool, like nominal settings, but substantively, aside from the victory in Silverstone, which they were always going to celebrate whenever that happened, if it were ever going to happen again, aside from those things, Shez, I don't think they're doing enough. And for me, chap, it's not even close.
Okay. And I know how much you hate whataboutism. I know you don't like it. And it's the lowest form of argumentation. Doesn't matter. But do you think that, for example, in 2006, Ferrari did enough to celebrate Michael Schumacher leaving?
2006 shares was a long time ago, man. It's hard for me to...
Yeah, but Michael Schumacher had won, how many, 5 titles with Ferrari? So I think that there are clear parallels, to the point that the driver in question is being replaced by a driver called Kimi. It's that close.
I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I can't remember, chap, if I'm honest, to do a lot.
He was in a title fight as well.
So clearly, Ferrari can't have done enough if you can't even remember what they did for him.
Well, not necessarily, Shez. This is
and yet now, when you think of the legends of Ferrari, who's the first person that comes to mind?
Yeah, well, it's got to be Michael, hasn't it? But what I'm saying to you, Shez, is that because my memory's not good, that doesn't mean that. Do you know what I mean? Necessarily.
But I would argue that actually the legacy doesn't happen now. You're not going to hear about it now, especially because he's about to go to another team to continue driving.
No, I disagree with that. Mercedes owe Lewis more than what they're doing. That's my point to you, Shez, is no more complicated or simple than that. Like, I don't really care about what they did to Schumacher in 2006. That may as well have been a gazillion years ago to me, to be honest. It's a different era, different everything, different Formula One, different set of rules and regs, different. Do you know what I mean? We're not comparing apples and apples in that context. All I know is this, Shez. Sir Lewis has done more for Mercedes. And forget, you're right, sack off F1 for a second. We talked about his multitudinous achievements in Formula One, and particularly with Mercedes. But what has Lewis done as a brand Hamilton for Mercedes? I remember first moving to London, and the car to own when I first moved down here in 2013 was a BMW. Nobody wasn't checking for Mercedes. Nobody didn't care. And of course, Mercedes went and built themselves some very, very sexy, aesthetically brilliant looking cars, and Lewis didn't have a hand in that. But the brand that is Mercedes outside of Formula One exists as a function of Lewis Hamilton, chaps. You're talking about share price as far as Ferrari. No, the share price as far as Mercedes, Daimler, is exponentially bigger now as far as its worth, as far as its price and market capitalization, as a function of Lewis Hamilton. That's why, Shazino, they need to give this dude more than they're doing.
So if they gave him
done season, not caps, but
what did they
celebrating
need?
A victory for him?
So
I don't know the
is,
answer.
so all of that stuff is amazing. It is amazing. He has built up. That's the problem, isn't it? That's the problem.
I'm not a marketing whiz.
If they gave him a couple of his championship winning cars, would that be enough? Because I'm pretty sure he's already got a couple.
Well, just more. I'm not talking about. He got everything he needs. Chap, he rolls around in private jets and has a gazillion zeros in his bank account. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about. I need to, bruv. All I'll say to you is this, in its most simplistic terms. I watch F1 content for a living, chap. I haven't seen. I know Baxter's talking about the caps. I think that's nominal. That's not even that sort of celebration.
That was a small fish example, but there were others as well, like the press tours and the.
I haven't seen them.
Him driving his old cars But what I will say is that the greatest legacy that he has left on that team is the impact that he's made in wider issues. You know, the fact that he was the one that drove the change of the livery in 2020 and everything that represented. The fact that he has got the Hamilton Commission, he's got Project 44 that Mercedes are invested in, and I'm fairly certain will continue to invest in because they believe that he's convinced them and helped them to understand him, truly embedding in them that culture of success and that culture of trying to promote new talent and getting STEM into schools and everything else. That is one of the greatest legacies that Lewis will have with that team. And it's the way that they will carry themselves forward beyond his tenure there.
I like what you said there, Baxter, but there's a flip reverse to that, right? Two sides of the same coin. The equal and opposite downside is that some will say that that's the reason why Lewis left in the first place, or at least one of the reasons, because they didn't offer to invest at the same lick or rate that Scuderia Ferrari offered to invest in all of those altruistic ventures.
Yeah, but I mean, come on, Ferrari were doing that to get his signature on the contract. I mean, it's called negotiation, isn't it? I mean, look at Adrian Newey. The only reason he went to Aston was because they offered him shares in the group. He would have got. He had offers from everywhere, from Williams, from Ferrari, from McLaren. But the way Aston got his name on the contract was by saying you can be a shareholder of the Aston Group.
Let me just say this as we round third base on Lewis Hamilton's subject topic. I can see me and the Lewis Hamilton fundamentalist aren't cozy bedfellows, but in this instance, chaps, I can see why the most apropos of characterizations is disrespect. I understand now. I know, Baxter, you're different and that you're Mercedes through and through, and that 2025 will come and go and you'll still be there with the Mercedes cap. I understand though now more than ever why Lewis Hamilton fans in their droves will completely sack off Mercedes as soon as Lewis Hamilton puts on those red overalls and arrives in Maranello and starts living at Enzo Ferrari's house. Because The disrespect on the negotiation, the failure to invest in it's a package deal, right? The failure to invest in the altruistic ventures, not giving him the car. The 8th is a long lost memory now. Toto Wolff promised that. It wasn't delivered upon, nowhere even near. Did they give him a set of wheels capable of ever looking like it was going to win a championship? No, not even close. By dint of some of their very dodgy low-level decision making, when they were advised about porpoising, they didn't even listen to the message by one of the goatiest aerodynamics engineers, designers to have ever dealt with porpoising at the time when porpoising was a real thing. Do you know what I mean? So as a function of all of these things, I can't blame the most fundamental of Lewis Hamilton fundamentalists for when Lewis Hamilton puts on those red overalls and jumps into that red car chaise for doing one of these. Good riddance, Mercedes, Toto Wolff, et al. Like it was never you. It was never me. The relationship that I had with you was vicariously through Lewis Hamilton. You're out here on social media talking all this stuff. If you didn't love me at my worst, then you don't deserve to love me at my best. Well, you misconstrue our relationship, boys and girls from Brackley and Brixworth, because it was never you. It was always Lewis Hamilton. And then you got the backdraft of that. Lest we forget, when they get to Silverstone next year, let's see how many luminous caps and George Russell hats are being worn as versus how many red Scuderia Ferrari ones shares. What do you make of that, chap?
All true. I'm the same. Like next season, it's going to be Lewis. Is he wearing red, or is he wearing? I don't know. If he heads off to Aston Martin, I'd support them too. That to me doesn't make a difference. But that's not what we're arguing here. What we're arguing about is, were they disrespectful? Were they disrespectful when they provided him with a car that allowed 6 world championships? No. Can you blame physics for some of the troubles that they have had when? Yeah, you can lay porpoising at their door, not listening at their door. But when did that message come? Was it at the beginning, or was it when they'd already signed off the entire car? Were they the only team on the whole grid that had porpoising? No, they were not.
But they had the worst
you cannot.
Of it,
yeah, Cameron, what you can't do is. I mean, you can do what you want, but ultimately, like, I think it's disingenuous to blame physics on the decisions that Mercedes-Benz have made. Like, they made the same mistakes as everybody else, and they used the tools that they were using in their dominant years, maybe incorrectly, and maybe they didn't understand that, but they didn't have the minds that the other team Red Bull had at the time. I'm not going to lay that at their door. And in terms of like the messaging that's coming out this season, yeah, some of it's been clumsy. Yeah. And it's been shocking to have to watch the guy that I think is the greatest of all time having to go through what he's going through right now. I get that. It's hard, man. It's hard for all of us. It's probably even hard for them too. But to say that, to parlay that into they are disrespectful, they do not care, I think is disingenuous. And I think and to Baxley's point, the biggest thing that they could have done was turn their back on Lewis when he asked them to back him in 2020 onwards. And that's the one point at which they said, nah, all right, we're with you. We'll turn the car black. We'll push on with the Hamilton Commission, Mission 44, Accelerate 25, all of that stuff.
And then shortly thereafter, they give him a 1+1 when he's 39, soon to be 40 years old.
Okay, and you're telling me that that's the wrong thing to do. At some point, you're telling me there wasn't a point at which Mercedes had to say, we can't keep going with Lewis Hamilton forever.
Well, that's a very different. I see what you've done there, Shez. That's my trick, sir. A linguistic sleight of hand. Those two things aren't the same thing. Shez.
You just said it.
No, listen. There is. Okay, so were they acting in their own interest? Of course they were. Was this a commercial? No, sporting endeavour at all? Absolutely. Are they looking to build themselves the second iteration of a Mercedes F1 empire? Of course. And under the umbrella heading of all the aforementioned, of course, they've got to consider the future. They've got to think about Georgia. They've got to think about Antonelli, of course. but that can exist in the same space as Lewis Hamilton disrespect. From a Lewis Hamilton perspective, they haven't given me the car. The 8th that Toto promised me is gonzo. He's there telling me about if I leave, I'm going to spend all my time looking at the bloody Mercedes rear wing and all this stuff. Like, I feel like disrespect based upon what's happened, particularly over the past 12 months. And if you want to get sexy, you can extend that over the past 24, 36 because of the car, etc., etc. Because of the lack of a protest 2021, because Toto Wolff didn't get in the face of Christian Horner and fight and scrape and scratch for every sinew of lap time over the 2021 championship. This is a package deal, Shez. Disrespect didn't start and finish with this season. The disrespect, I feel, some Lewis Hamilton fans will rightfully argue has been going on for the longest time. I don't want to dip my toes in the Sabotage waters. But at this stage, when you look at the package deal, you can forgive some people for forgiving Lewis Hamilton if indeed he feels disrespected. True or false, Shez?
I'd say Lewis Hamilton doesn't need forgiveness for anything. He's not done anything wrong. I think that
you can forgive him. Listen again. If Lewis Hamilton feels disrespected on the back of everything that's happened over the past 36 months, as I've outlined, the 1+1, the poor car, feeling again, rightfully or wrongfully, that they favour George Russell as the going concern that will be there in 2025, long after he's gone. The next one, on the back at 2021, Toto, all of the aforementioned. I'm saying this to you, Shez. Listen keenly, chap. That you could forgive Lewis Hamilton if he feels disrespected as a result of all of what's happened over the past 36 months. Do you agree or disagree?
Oh, I understand what you're saying.
So do you agree or disagree?
Wait, but what you're asking is, would I forgive Lewis for feeling disrespected? Is that the question you're asking?
I'm saying I think you should. I think you can. I think you can forgive Lewis if he feels disrespected on the back of all of the aforementioned.
Sure, of course, because but that's a very personal thing. But we are not Lewis Hamilton. Are you Lewis Hamilton? I'm not.
And you say that to say
that we can have an objective view of this because we're not in the middle of it. And I agree. You know what? I will give you 2021. I agree with you. In hindsight, having looked at how Christian Horner operates at Red Bull and the way he backs his driver, coming out with telemetry to say that he didn't, he shouldn't have got a penalty for something that he clearly should have got a penalty for. I mean, it's essentially humiliating yourself to back your own driver. And Toto didn't go anywhere near that in 2021. I get that. But does that mean that as an overall package, as you say, the last 4 seasons have to suddenly overshadow what happened for the previous 8 seasons?
Different question, Shaz. It's a very different. Overshadow is techie, but recency bias is a cognitive dissonance that we all suffer from.
But that's what we're trying to combat here, isn't it?
I mean, there's only so much combat in that. Baxley, talk to me, chap. Where do you sit on this fence? On what side of this fence do you sit, sir?
I mean, look, I understand the point that you've just said as well. You know, you would forgive him for thinking that he feels disrespected. I mean, I just feel like realistically, I think we have come to the end of a relationship. That's where it's come. You know, I know Lewis wanted to end his career with Mercedes, but he also wants to end his career with 8 world championships, and Mercedes are not the best place to do that right now. And that's heartbreaking, you know, as a Lewis fan and a Mercedes fan. It's heartbreaking to see that. Next year is going to be so awkward when I'm supporting one car in red and then the 2 silver arrows as well. It's going to be very weird. But yeah, I've been with Lewis since 2007. I'm not going to just abandon him now that he's left the team I support as well, or leaving the team. But I will end on this. I mentioned Tom Brady earlier and how the New England Patriots didn't back him. And he but he didn't end his career when he left the Patriots. He went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and in his first season there, he won another Super Bowl. And that is what I am, and that's my message to all Lewis Hamilton fans, myself, you, Cameron, Shez. Let's hold on to that, and let's hope that when he goes into that Ferrari, which is already looking good, has a better rear end, which is, we know Lewis's great strength, having a strong rear, that is what will help propel him to at least challenge for an 8th championship next year, that Ferrari can give him the tools to get and to have that same story, well, fairy tale ending that Tom Brady had when he went to that other team to prove his greatness. And in the very first attempt, he got that championship. And I hope, I'm not saying he will, but I'm hoping that he can at least challenge for it, and we can still see Lewis at his best.
Oof, on that bombshell. Sir Baxter, here's hoping. I hope that a Brady and a LeBron James aren't the exceptions that prove the rule. I honestly, mate, I can't even put into words how much I hope that you are correct, sir. But listen, I digress. Another conversation for another day. You guys have been legends. That's been Shazinho, aka the A side of Tyre GP fame. Go and subscribe to that YouTube channel. And that's been Baxty of the shifting. Remind me, Baxty.
Shifting happens, yeah.
Shifting happens on Baxter BF1. You guys have been legends. I've been Cameron CC as always. Between now and next time, do me a favour. Do yourselves a favour. Remember to look, but never stare.